They're the largest birds in the world. They can run at speeds of up to 65 kilometers per hour. Their leg muscles are so powerful that a single kick has been known to rip a lion or a man wide open. They and their ancestors have been around for at least 50 million years. Nature started out by giving them wings, but then decided that they were never built to fly. Ostriches were once spread right through southern Europe and as far east as Mongolia. Today, they're confined to the dry savanna areas of Africa. These particular ostriches live in one of the harshest environments of all. This is the Etosha Pan, inside Namibia's gigantic Etosha National Park. These legs belong to a male. You can tell by the red leg markings and beak that the cock develops in the breeding season. A male ostrich's head is 2.5 meters above the ground, which makes drinking a lengthy process. The cock shows off his black and white coloring when displaying to a brown female. Those white tail and wing feathers were the ones in demand for the fashion trade. Farming ostriches probably saved the bird from being hunted to extinction in the wild. Other birds have 4 toes. The ostrich alone has 2. One long and one short are much better than 4 for sprinting. For such big, fast-running birds, ostriches are wary and extremely difficult to approach. But all animals must rest sometime. He's chosen a fairly safe place for his nap. The herds of zebra and wildebeest on the plains live peacefully alongside ostriches. Standing at over 2 meters, the birds get a good view of the surrounding countryside. When an ostrich shows signs of nervousness, the other animals are warned of danger. But this time, the ostrich's skittishness has nothing to do with danger. The group consists of young, perhaps 1-year-old birds who are indulging in high spirits. Ostriches have long, soft plumes because they don't need stiff, waterproof flight feathers. But they do need to keep them free from parasites. Regular dust baths help get rid of feather lice. Some of the chasing around by young birds is a warm-up for mating and aggressive displays later in life. An ostrich lives for perhaps 25 years in the wild and isn't ready to breed until it's 3 or 4. This mating duel, taking place out on the Etosha Pan, is the real thing, with one cock chasing off another. The female will pair with whichever bird wins. A courting male ostrich booms and performs a strange ballet-like routine. There's often another hen watching and waiting nearby. When mating is over, the male goes off, not this time to court the other hen, but to prepare a nest site. As if to encourage him, his mate remains displaying nearby, while he prepares to dig out a scrape with his powerful legs. Cock ostriches take their paternal responsibilities seriously. The hen inspects the site he's chosen. It doesn't look much of a nest, but that's where she'll lay her eggs. In fact, this one turned out to be a very poor nest site. Some jackals had spotted it too. They waited until the hen was away from the nest and then moved in on the first egg she'd laid. The jackal rolls one egg away. When the hen at last returned, the damage had been done. It's hardly credible that a jackal can break anything as tough as an ostrich egg, but the disturbance alone was enough to make the pair desert the nest and start all over again, somewhere far safer. The safest place is out in the open, when the birds can spot potential enemies from miles away. The broken wing display is designed to draw intruders away from the nest. A hen usually produces about 8 eggs. There are 25 here, so 3 hens have laid in the one nest. That's quite usual. For such a big bird, it's a very small egg. The egg represents only 1% of the hen's body weight. Proportionately, a robin's egg is quite large. The cock does a good deal of incubating. He turns the eggs before settling on them. At midday, the ground temperature out here on the pan is 50 degrees Celsius. One of the main problems is to prevent the eggs from getting hot. The digging action is to excavate a trench round the nest to stop eggs rolling out of the scrape. The cock often incubates throughout the night and half the day. The female needs to feed to replenish fat reserves used up while turning eggs. On the pan, he can spot her coming a kilometer away. As a signal that it's all clear for her to take over, he lies with his neck extended on the sand. Strangely, it's also an attitude he adopts if there are predators about. To encourage and reassure her, he moves his head and claps his beak. For some unknown reason, she goes through the motions of feeding around the nest before moving in. Then she checks and rolls the eggs to ensure that they develop evenly. After 42 days, the first eggs in the ostrich nest on the Etosha pan are beginning to hatch. It's an astonishing feat of strength. The breakout can take them up to 36 hours. These first chicks will have to wait around with their parents until the last of the hatchlings emerge, and that can take up to a week. All the time they'll do without food and drink, so they hatch well stocked up with nourishment within their own fat little bodies. They rely entirely on their parents for shelter during their first few days. The end of the hatching period is in sight. The cock has been brooding the chicks and the few remaining unhatched eggs all night. The hen appears in the early morning to relieve the cock, but at this stage he rarely leaves the family. Ostrich chicks are vulnerable to attack from many predators, and they need the male to fend off enemies. Another chick is emerging, and it's the cock who walks back to help it out of the egg. Since he's constantly on duty, he can't allow any source of food to go to waste, and that includes the egg membranes. When the female finally takes over, the cock only moves about 20 meters. His mate checks the eggs, turning them and listening for sounds of chicks cheeping inside. The cock is responsible for the safety of the first chicks to hatch. Meanwhile, the hen supervises the brooding of the late arrivals, as well as the still unhatched eggs. In fact, the parental situation, as the end of the hatching approaches, is extremely fluid, with both parents sharing the chores almost equally. Will they, or won't, these eggs hatch before the time comes to leave the nest? The hen is checking out the last of the eggs. There's one chick that's just made it. And again, it's the cock who moves in to help this late arrival out of the shell. In a few hours, the ostrich pair decide it's time to move away from the nest. The chicks are reaching the point at which they must feed. To wait for those last eggs to hatch would endanger the whole family. Perhaps the last eggs aren't even fertile. But an even more ruthless decision has to be taken. The last chick to emerge is still wet and feeble. It will be given a chance to catch up with the rest. But if it fails, it will be abandoned, for the good of the whole family. The hen goes back for a last listen for chicks inside the eggs. As she returns to lead the family away, she passes the weakling. If it tries to follow, it might still make it. They wait to encourage it. The hen even goes back to lure it into the little shade she can offer. But sadly, it hasn't the strength. The cock tries encouragement too, but it's plain now that the young ostrich is just not one of the fittest who are destined to survive. The family move away across the pan. Within hours, the straggler is dead. The parents' first task is to lead their chicks to an area where they can get the seeds and insects they need to build up their strength. They can't hurry them too much at first, or they'll become exhausted. The parents are badly in need of food too, after long days at the nest. The first day, they only cover 400 meters. By next morning, they're moving at a good pace. Lack of water doesn't bother them. They get all the moisture they want from the vegetation they eat. They've survived many hazards already as a tightly knit family unit. As we've seen, the parents have undergone considerable hardships to rear their brood. But a new test lies ahead. There's every reason to believe that the amazing situation we're about to witness is a fairly common one in the world of the ostrich. It happens when one family party with young suddenly finds itself face to face with a similar group. The confrontation starts with some fairly gentle, but obviously disturbed, displaying. No one could guess at this stage that one pair is about to make a takeover bid for all the offspring of the other. The encounter starts sedately, but very soon it's clear this is no ritual dance. One cock tries to kick the opposing female, and she gives as good as she gets. While this is going on, the chicks stand in two tight little groups, apparently just waiting to see who wins. One of the cocks shows signs of backing down and moves slowly away. As soon as he starts to run, his hen follows him. The whole encounter has lasted 15 minutes. winners move off, just as if nothing had happened, to double the size of their family. The chicks seem completely to accept the situation. It's not unusual to find these very large coveys of young ostriches, so presumably this kind of takeover happens quite often. If so, it must have some survival value for the species as a whole. Possibly the combined groups have a better chance against enemies such as jackals and hyenas. Sometimes even adults fall victim to the larger predators. This big male cheetah has pulled down and killed a fully grown female ostrich after a fierce battle. The ostrich weighed 50 kilos more than its attacker. This dead female had a large family of chicks, so what will happen to her brood now? Fortunately, ostriches have a built-in safety device to take care of such calamities. The cockbird, so family-minded on the nest, simply takes on full responsibilities. He will look after the entire brood until they can take care of themselves. The chicks will grow fast now, at the rate of about 30 centimeters every month, until they're 2 meters tall. Growth slows down then, but by that stage they're well able to take care of themselves. This biggest and perhaps strangest of birds may never have been built to fly, but it has certainly perfected a unique and successful lifestyle for itself and its hordes of young on the African plains, at ground level.
Out of Africa turns turtle next week and visits Tongaland, Natal, where leatherback and loggerhead turtles live in relative safety. That's next Wednesday at 8:30.